I hope you're ready for a shitstorm because this one is a brewing. Trans prisoners go back to living as men after they are released. Didn't see that coming. And neither did the women in the prison. Is that too far? Women in prison have described how some transgender prisoners in female jails make little effort to live as women and go back to living as men after they are released. Who said this was gonna happen? Definitely not people on the far left. A researcher interviewed 15 women in Scottish prisons about their experience of living alongside biologically male prisoners who are placed in women's prison because they claim to be transitioning. Yes, trans privilege is a real thing, and yes, it is happening. And yes, you can be pro-transgender but anti-gender ideology, which is, hi, that's me. Let's dive in. While the women interviewed had mixed feelings, most said that they supported people who are genuinely transgender. Hi, me again, that's me. Not one of the people in the jail, but that's definitely something I support. But felt skeptical as to the motives of those who changed their gender identity while in custody. One woman said she now believed that a trans prisoner who she befriended while inside, but who returned to living as a man after release, had been a man wanting an easy escape from the male estate. This has been going on in Scotland since around 2014, apparently. They're a little bit more woke in some ways than we are here in the States. 1 out of 20 prisoners housed with females are currently males. If they're actually transgender or not, probably not. And while on the subject of this, do you remember that clip that went viral recently of this supposed trans woman, Jordan Gray, who literally flashed their chest, their breasts, and their penis on live TV? Also happening in the UK? Watch this clip. I had to blur pretty much everything because, you know.
Stuff like this.
Just for a second, imagine if this was just a regular dude. Just imagine the amount of being canceled that person would have to endure. People would be pissed. Pun intended, of course. Yes, I wrote that joke. Now that I'm reading it out loud, it sounds ridiculous. But you know what? We're gonna go with it. The guy would be arrested or fined, at least fined for indecent exposure. Obviously, this is not consensual. The people sitting in the audience did not consent to seeing a random person's penis. Yet, we have these idiot white leftist women cheering this on in the audience. I mean, this guy said it best. Trans has become the new priesthood beyond the laws the rest of us have to abide by. Hilarious. I mean, do you want to get out easy on being a possible sex offender that allegedly groomed a 12-year-old girl? Simply claim that you're non-binary and also happen to be a Hollywood celebrity. Are you a supposed trans woman who literally dismembered and killed their girlfriend? Don't worry, leftists will be there to support you while insulting and claiming that everyone that misgenders you is a bigot while simultaneously ignoring the actual issue at hand.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
That person was let out of prison after only 7 years, by the way. Just another reason. Prison system is ridiculously disgusting and broken. As a lesbian myself, I can also say there is a number of things that we have homosexual privilege for, I'm not gonna lie. There's also female privilege. I mean, normally seeing a kid on a stripper pole like this would have the general public outraged, but all you gotta do is slap a rainbow sticker on it and call it gay pride and suddenly it's okay. Intersectionality at its finest. I mean, think about this. Trans privilege is the only identity that grants someone access to a space that otherwise they would be completely banned from. Strictly based on forcing the public to see them how they see themselves. It's also the only current psychological condition that we are told that patients can self-diagnose and also decide how far along they want to transition. If doctors, psychologists, therapists deny said care, they're deemed transphobic and called bigots. Practice is canceled, fired from their jobs. Remember when Canada started housing supposed trans women with biological females? Remember when we were all called bigots for saying that this was not okay? Remember just a few months ago back in May in New Jersey, they were interviewing a female prisoner and she said how terrified she was of the supposed trans women who are probably actually men in their prisons. Apparently, under the current policy, the men do not need to undergo any surgery and most of the men are not on hormone replacement therapy. She stated that a majority of the women incarcerated at this New Jersey prison have past trauma, with many being victims victims of male violence, and the presence of men in the facility is causing them severe distress. But you know what? Forget about housing those trans women in female prisons. Why not just have them avoid prison altogether? Yeah, they don't need to go there. This was a story in the Times UK, by the way. Transgender status helps pedophile Peter Selby avoid prison. Can't make this shit up. A Tory peer is leading calls to a judge's decision not to jail a pedophile who identifies as transgender after their conviction, of course, for possession of more than 125,000 child abuse images. Absolutely disgusting. A Newcastle Crown Court recorder said, "You identify as transgender, and that has caused issues for you and anxiety for you, and how you would cope with that if you were sent to prison immediately." 125,000 child abuse images. I can't even fathom that large of a number. And who remembers this gem from a few years ago? Blair White, I remember, actually covered this story, but let's just revisit it for a second. Convicted sex predator of young children to be released for being trans.
Convicted pedo to be released from jail after becoming a woman. No longer deemed a threat. So that person was sent to prison and is now being released, get this, because they are identifying and transitioning into a woman. Literally because. And I thought that can't be the reason. There has to be maybe like, I don't know, good behavior or an exoneration. No, this person still did what they did, but is getting released because they're on hormones and, according to the judge, no longer deemed a threat.
Who else thinks this person is very much still a threat, including myself and Blair? I mean, if you do, maybe go and click the like button down below. And just 2 years ago, a judge reversed his decision to send a very violent trans woman to prison because he could not confirm their gender. Despite living and identifying as a woman, LaFaye would have had to serve her sentence at a male-only jail because the Home Office and Prisons Service would not recognize her as a woman without a GRC. This would have not only created intractable accommodation problems, but also caused substantial and unintended trauma for LaFaye. Literal trans get out of jail free card. This just happened 2 weeks ago. Listen to this. Transgender child pervert back on streets despite being told she would be deported. This trans woman was caught with thousands upon thousands of child abuse and pornography videos and photos on their computer. The judge said that D'Souza had no previous convictions and had cooperated with them in handing over their passwords. The judge also noted that this trans woman was getting on well in prison and seemed well capable of reform. Here's another one. Pedophile babysitter who attacked 6-year-old boys is released from prison after claiming a sex change made it less likely that she'd re-offend. I don't think a sex change would make anyone less of a pedophile or a sex offender. It might make you want to have sex less, but don't worry, we still have tons of more trans privilege examples to get through, including, female teachers getting sent home for wearing this while trans women in Canada are allowed to express their gender by wearing fake tremendous breasts and hard nipples 24/7. Or what about when Eli Ehrlich told people to illegally distribute prescriptions to children who claimed that they were trans and didn't get banned from Instagram or even questioned by the police? Redistribute your extra hormones to people who can't access or afford them. You cannot give your prescription medications to anybody. I mean, I would say especially children. It's interesting to think about because trans people are reaping the privileges of being considered the most oppressed group while reaping those benefits of being the most oppressed group. And then also being the most catered to group, which is just another form of privilege. If trans people are still the most oppressed group, then why did Dylan Mulvaney, just after 5 months of beginning her transition, have a place in the White House? Met with the president, did the whole thing. I mean, even though we more than likely know that this was just to get Dylan's followers from TikTok and such to vote Democrat. Like, clearly this was a ploy just to get votes. I don't think Biden gives a about Dylan or the majority of trans people.
It feels like Republicans have turned trans and non-binary people into this thing to blame society's downfall on in some ways. And this narrative is not only dangerous to our mental health, but also our physical safety. Really?
Really? You're gonna blame Republicans for this? You don't think it was potentially any of the that we covered in this video? What about the other 50 plus videos I have critiquing gender ideology? And remember, like I say in almost every video, two things can be true at once. Yes, there are a lot of creepy, predatory, supposed trans people, and maybe a few trans people that are actually trans people that are also creepy and predatory. But of course, on the other side of things, there are also a ton of legitimate trans people that are well-meaning actual transsexuals. And in my opinion, in order to keep the rights and the validation of actual trans people, we have to keep calling calling out bad behavior, even if that comes from the government and lawmakers. But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, things are starting to change. Transgender criminal makes history by appearing in court as both a man and a woman. Okay, not exactly what I meant. Transgender child rapist Marsha Walker in isolation at men's prison as is too dangerous for women's jail. A transgender pedophile is reportedly being kept in isolation at a men's prison as they are deemed too dangerous to be around female inmates. It was believed to have been decided that Marsha Walker, who has connections with Worcestershire, would pose a risk if she was moved to a women's prison. The 48-year-old, formerly called Mark Walker, was locked up for 13 years for raping 2 girls as young as 4. Disgusting. But while an inmate, she was also convicted as making fake bomb threats against the prisoner's governor and his staff. Just another crazy video for you to start off your week. I hope you enjoyed it, even though obviously it's not an enjoyable topic. It's very important to talk about. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you go and follow me on my Rumble page. I do live streams for an hour every week with a new special guest. And other than that, I'll see you guys back here in a few days with a brand new video. Until then, stay sane. Maybe we're just gonna end the video with that. Stay sane. Bye.